Okay, so part two of our transopoly of the day. Oh, by the way, I am Russell Dobular sitting in for Jimmy Dore, who is performing in El Paso, Texas this Friday. So, in an eerie parallel to the Satanic Panic, which we did in the previous segment, the whole story around gender medicine for youth is coming apart. So, briefly, for anyone who hasn't been following this, Britain is leaving the U.S. gender medicine debate behind. The Cass report challenges the scientific basis of medical transition for minors. This was in The Atlantic, hardly a right-wing publication. In a world without partisan politics, the Cass report on youth gender medicine would prompt serious reflection from American trans rights activists, their supporters in the media, and the doctors and institutions offering hormonal and surgical treatments to minors. At the request of the English National Health Service, the senior pediatrician Hilary Cass has completed the most thorough consideration yet of this field, and her report calmly and carefully demolishes many common activist tropes. Puberty blockers do have side effects, Cass found. Who knew? The evidence base for widely used treatments is shaky. Their safety and effectiveness are not settled science. The report drew on extensive interviews with doctors, parents, and young people, as well as on a series of new systematic literature reviews. Its publication marks a decisive turn away from the affirmative model of treatment, in line with similar moves in other European countries, where coincidentally, they don't have a profit motive. So this is J.K. Rowling, the highly regarded pediatrician who conducted the most thorough review ever undertaken on the medical evidence for transitioning gender-confused children, has been advised not to travel on public transport for her own safety. So, this was in the London Times. Dr. Hilary Cass has criticized the spread of disinformation around her report, including from a Labour MP, as she revealed she had been told not to travel on public transport over safety fears. Following publication of her 388-page report, figures including the Labour MP Dawn Butler repeated claims that Cass had not included 100 transgender studies in it. Calling the assertion completely wrong, Cass said that it was unforgivable for people to undermine her report by spreading straight disinformation. The physician, 66, who has spoken about the toxic debate around the issue, also revealed that she had been sent vile, abusive emails and been given security advice to help keep her safe. These people are so peaceful. They're so peaceful. It's the people on the other side are threatening them. They're threatening their lives. They're putting their lives in danger.
Israel still?
Yeah. You know, it's very similar, right? Let me punch you in the mouth and claim that I'm the victim. Of her critics, Cass said, quote, "I have been really frustrated by the criticisms because it is straight disinformation. It is completely inaccurate. It started the day before the report came out, when an influencer put up a picture of a list of papers that were apparently rejected for not being randomized control trials. That list has absolutely nothing to do with either our report or any of the papers. If you deliberately try to undermine a report that has looked at the evidence of children's health care, then that's unforgivable. You are putting children at risk by doing that."
They did on purpose.
Is Emma Vigeland. I hope somebody will get that message through to her, because the first thing that she did, as we will see at the end of the segment, is bring on a trans activist journalist to cherry pick studies and completely spread disinformation.
But she's so ethical
about this report.
She usually does a great job.
I want to know where YouTube is about the spread of dangerous medical misinformation when it's done by Emma Vigeland. I want to know, why are you not stopping the spread of dangerous misinformation, which is exactly what that segment did.
Dangerous to the system, not to you.
Yeah, exactly. In the days after the Cass review was published, activists claimed on social media that only 2 out of 100 studies were included in the report. Butler told the House of Commons, quote, "There are around 100 studies that have not been included in this Cass report, and we need to know why." Cass explained that researchers had appraised every single paper, but pulled the results from the ones that were high quality and medium quality, which was 60 out of 103.
They didn't use the fluff.
They didn't use the shitty ones. They're saying, why didn't you cherry pick poorly executed studies that say what we want it to say? Of Butler, she added, quote, "You don't get up in Parliament with an intent to spread misinformation. But what I was dismayed about was the understanding she got from the report." Cass's NHS review found that an entire field of medicine aimed at enabling children to change gender had been built on shaky foundations. She found there was no good evidence to support the global clinical practice of prescribing hormones to under 18s to cause puberty or transition to the opposite sex. The Gender Identity Development Service at the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust was ordered to close after her interim report found it, quote, "was not a safe or viable long-term option." Last week, it emerged that NHS adult gender clinics had finally agreed to share missing data on the outcomes of 9,000 patients who were treated as children at the Tavistock Clinic. Cass revealed that 6 clinics had thwarted her review by refusing to cooperate with research into the long-term impact of prescribing puberty blockers and sex hormones. She described their failure to share data as coordinated and ideologically driven. Okay, so if science and medicine are on your side, wouldn't you want to share information?
No,
because the information is going to vindicate you, right? Why would you hold back information? These people do not believe in science. They do not believe in medicine. They will invoke the name of science because it has some residual trust among the public.
It's called magic.
They believe in magic, but they'll call it science in order to have their way. But when people try to actually perform science and do studies, they resist that vehemently because they know what the studies are going to find. They know the studies are going to find that everything they're telling people is a fucking lie. Cass also revealed that the Tavistock Clinic had refused to cooperate the review by not handing over data on detransitioners who had been examined by a psychiatrist. They're always telling you there are so few detransitioners, but then they won't tell you how many detransitioners
I'm
there
having
are.
a satanic panic. I got to be a little honest right now.
It's
because
great.
this is satanic. Don't look in the woods. Your whole thing is Satan. But we're not great. We're not the one that Osama knew. We're the one, the fat Sam Smith with a top hat and devil horns, brought to you by Pfizer. A lamer Satan.
Well, that's it. There's money to be made here. You know, I mean, if you medicalize these people young, that shit is so dangerous. It causes so many complications. You got a medical patient for life. That's billions of dollars for them. So this is Jesse Singal, who's done really good reporting on this. Scientific American doesn't cover the Cass review. Cass report and Cass review net zero Google hits, but instead, the week after its release, it publishes an interview with an activist who believes kids should have full medical autonomy and that interpreting scientific results in a manner she disagrees with is epistemological violence. Okay, so going back to what you were just saying about magic, that's what you're saying. If you're saying that science is an act of epistemological violence, you're saying you don't believe in science. You're saying that system of understanding is an act of violence against you. You believe in witchcraft, or you believe in voodoo, or you believe in the stars, or praying to the trees, or
doubling up the meaning of words, which is what they've been doing. That's why all the words are
stochastic terrorism.
Okay, so that is actually an esoteric, like the people that come up with this shit, they're applying these principles, like Hegel was into this shit. They're applying these principles of there's no such thing as truth.
Yes.
So the shit's all fucking connected. And remember when Oprah, I think she's the one, I don't know who invented this saying, but I heard it from Oprah first. My truth. Can I tell my truth?
Right.
And I remember when that saying was launched on the public, and then all of a sudden men were saying it to me. Like grown men. And I was like, what in the fuck?
It evolved into my lived experience.
You mean experience? What other kind of experience is there?
What if you're kind of fucking stupid and you misinterpreted your personal lived experience? What if the lessons you took from it are dumb?
No, perception's true.
Is that possible?
My truth and your truth are not. In fact, that dippy lady who at her TED Talk talking about the NPR chick, she goes, "We're not pursuing truth. That's not what's important for this. It's about consensus." So that right there, as a guy who's not religious, I'm telling you, that's Satan right there. And that's why I told you that guy before. Those are the distraction things to distract you from the fact that you live in a utterly satanic system of lies at every turn.
What do you mean, Kurt? Satan doesn't exist.
No, Satan means adversary, so of course it exists.
This is Benjamin Ryan. The CBC News quotes doctors repeating the false claim that the Cass review disregarded any studies about pediatric gender transition treatment that were not randomized controlled trials. The article by Lisa Johnson makes many other false claims. See, these are the cockroaches scurrying away from the light, because a lot of these people are going to be subject to lawsuits. A lot of them are going to lose their reputations. Maybe some of them will lose their medical licenses, as they should. So they're going to fight kicking and screaming. And the ones that don't fight kicking and screaming, like Stonewall, Mermaids, they're trying to pivot now and say, no, we welcome this report. We've always said that we're on the side of the science, because they see the direction this is going in. And finally, again from Jesse Singal, the majority port cannot survive unless it creates a hermetically sealed universe in which its audience's priors are constantly reinforced. No meaningful dissent allowed. So they had Aaron Reed on to discuss the Cass report, and that'll be it for their coverage of the subject. Misinformation in the BreadTube universe is a pretty big problem. Now, poor little rich girl, Emma Vigeland. We did a video on this. You can look it up. She went on an epic rant about how if women's sports cannot accommodate men,
get rid of them.
There shouldn't be women's sports.
Right.
And she acknowledged that it could ruin the competition. And she went on to scream, literally, "I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit." And argued that women's sports hasn't been around that long as an institution. So if it's not robust enough to admit males, then, well, whatever. Let it go. And she's completely wrong about it not having been around a long time. It just hasn't been around a long time.
I just never watched it.
In the form it is now, but it's been around for over 100 years.
I'll watch it if
but that's pretty typical, Emma. Keaton, you have anything?
I try to care about this issue. I really do. But I don't. It's just my honest opinion. It seems to be a static thing. And, these things kind of are looking back on something that's already been done. Right. I mean, obviously, I was agnostic about this issue for a while. But, there seems to have been a lot of cost benefit analyses run by countries that are both socially and economically to the left of ours, who seem to, from what I've gathered, feel that the risks outweigh the rewards. And so that's why you see like the Tavistock shut down, right? And the, WPATH leaks having come out, Cass report. There seems to be a barrage of evidence. I don't know if barrage is the right way, but a cascading flow of evidence that seems to suggest that, at least in the case of youth, it's best to, not have those processes moving forward with people who are under the age of 18. Now, 18 is an arbitrary age in a sense, right? I mean, that's a political number. It's not really a scientific number. Like, we call you an adult at 18 because we need you to go fight wars at 18. And I guess if we need you to fight wars, then we need you to be able to vote. So I guess we'll call you an adult at 18. But really, your brainwaves don't stop developing until you're 25, right? So, that in itself is arbitrary. Now, if you're going to draw the line somewhere, I guess you got to draw the line somewhere if that's where society deems you capable of making these decisions for yourself. I guess that's where you draw the line. Then again, is a 22-year-old who got obsessed with a fad on TikTok and thinks they're trans, are they more equipped to make a decision for themselves than the 16-year-old who's been in therapy for 4 years? Probably not, right? So there's obviously going to be negative outcomes no matter what you do.
I mean, that's an area, because I don't think anybody, for the reasons that you're saying, can say that somebody over 18 doesn't have the right to make that choice, doesn't have the judgment or legal autonomy, because, and you can make the case that you're making, well, do they really have the judgment? But, we're going to let them go to war. You can't really say, well, you can't
get a tattoo.
You can't do that.
No, I understand. I'm just saying from a scientific standpoint, like I said, I'm not taking a position. I'm just posing the question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of horror stories from adults about how they just put them on hormones after one appointment, just like they're doing to kids.
Right.
I have focused on the child thing because I don't think there's any real room for debate. Whereas with the adults, there's more of the question of autonomy and choice, even if they are committing, and they are, acts of medical malpractice against adults as well. Not in all cases. Whereas I would argue with children in all cases, if you are putting a child on this kind of medication, that they can't possibly fully understand the long-term implications of for their lives. I mean, when you're a little kid, what do you think? I never want kids, right? I mean, you're not in a position to make judgments about medication that's going to sterilize you. But very likely to sterilize you. Whereas you don't have that issue with adults. For some adults, it is the right choice. So that gets a lot trickier. Interestingly, since you bring that up, the UK is now launching a study into the practice for adults, gender medicine for adults. But the issue, for obvious reasons, just isn't as fraught.
Okay, here's why America's going to stick with it longer, because first of all, why would at a young age you even need to get a head start on doing that physically? There is no reason other than your chances of passing.
Right.
What does passing mean? It means I want to be a woman, but I don't just want to be a woman. I want to be a beautiful, because we all know the most important thing of a woman is how pretty she is. Still to this day, after all the feminism, the most important thing. So never mind your inside mental health. My child needs a shot at being hot, maybe getting on a spot on Euphoria or something, So that's what this is. The demented narcissist parents they're getting lured in that way. Now the maniacs pushing this is just to sterilize some kids because you read the Georgia Guidestones, but the appeal to psychopath narcissists that live here that would do that to their children. The most important thing is being hot. So yeah, over 18, that could be malpractice too. How many people you know with bad plastic surgery that somebody said, what the fuck are you doing? That Michael Jackson's doctor still has his light. The guy gave him the Michael Jackson milk, went to prison. The guy fucked his face up, is giving out that face to any maniac that wants it, and it's clear malpractice. And if that's what they do to your face, what do you think they do to your dick?
You know what? That's what we call in the business a button. To you, Misha.
All right. Hey, get this. So we all know that the mainstream news media is not reliable. How can you trust them when they've never told you the truth about Russiagate, Ukraine, COVID, lockdowns, anything? That's where our sponsor, we have a new sponsor, Ground News, comes in handy. Ground News is an app and a website. And what they do is they gather related articles from around the world in one place so you can compare coverage. So it's not, they don't generate the news, they compile the news, and then they give you the visual breakdown of the news outlets and tell you if the source has a political bias, and if it does, what's the political bias, and how reliable that the reporting is, and who owns them. So it's super helpful and transparent. Check this out. So like if you search Russia-Ukraine, search Russia-Ukraine war, and you'll see how it's covered. Here we see 111 total news sources. 18 of them are left-leaning. 9 are right-leaning, and 27 of them are centrist. The bias distribution is 50% center, and it even shows their logos along with their factuality and ownership. So this is a pretty helpful, dare I say, use an old-timey term, this is a neat website. So this is a good way to do your own research. So you get there, you see that they help you by seeing what the bias is, by who owns these news outlets, but they compiles all different kinds of sources around one news story. So it gets you access to independent and international perspectives, not just nationalist sources with the same political agenda. It helps you find the discrepancies in how certain topics are covered and shows you how corporate agendas can influence the news you read. Sounds a lot like this show. Sounds like this website does what this show does. Sounds nice. So if you want to see it for yourself, go to ground.news/JD. Ground.news/JD. Use the link below, and we're going to get you 40% off unlimited access. Go to ground.news/JD, and we're going to get you 40% off unlimited access. Think critically about the news you consume.
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit